on, express elevator to hell. Going down.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Hallow Horror Pod. I'm your host, Hallow, and I am joined today by a group of people that some of you know. First, our first-time guest on this episode, Gary. How are you? Tell us how you're doing, and tell us about your first experience with Aliens, the movie.
Okay. I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for asking. My first experience with Alien was at the Midway Drive-In on Pack Highway in the fourth grade. It was a double feature of The Fly and Aliens, and I was a little kid. And that kind of changed the trajectory of the movies I watched right afterwards. So I mean, big influence. Got to see it on the IMAX of the time, I guess. Was so enthralled I didn't hear my parents arguing, and it was just a whole new world of sci-fi that ended up spanning decades of expanded universe lore and collectible stuff, and every novel, every comic, every audible. It's actually kind of ridiculous at this point. So yeah, that's me, man.
You even have cats named Waylon and Yutani, is that correct?
That is correct. My cats' names are Waylon and Yutani. Yeah, it's like I said, it's getting ridiculous.
I love it, man. And then joining us for, I guess this is his first time not on a video game episode because we had to scrap that first episode about 2025 movies. Tony,
R.I.P.
yeah, that was a really good episode. The audio was just bad, but that's why you do a first test run on everything, and that one is in the archives. But Tony, tell us how you are, and tell us about your first experience with Aliens.
I'm doing well. It's been a Monday, but it's not too bad. My first experience with Aliens is actually just a few years ago. I was a Predator fan growing up, and the fandom rivalries. I was like, no, I won't watch Aliens. And then finally, I pulled my head out of my butt and watched the first Alien, and then a few months later, I binged the rest of the Aliens, and now I'm uber fanboy. Before that, I'd only played some video games tied with it, but yeah. Now, Aliens is a very iconic movie, and I understand everything now.
And Mike, you need no introduction. You're on this podcast way too much, more than I am even, I would say. How are you, and what was your first experience with Aliens?
Well, truthfully, I'm tired because this last weekend I was helping on a film, standing holding the boom a lot. And my first experience with Aliens would be with a lot of my college friends. In 1986, I was in college. Being a fan of Alien and a fan of Terminator, it was an entirely natural thing that we would make a huge group to go out and see Aliens and just really absorb the whole experience in the theater in 1986.
Right on. Well, you may be asking yourself, because I didn't really do a full-on intro, are we covering Aliens just because it is the week of 4/26? No, it's not just because it's the week of 4/26. You're hearing this podcast on 4/23. We're recording it on 4/20, but we are recording it because our friends at Creator VC have asked us to talk about our experience with Aliens and encourage you to head on over to their website. The link is down below in the description on all of our social media channels. Go ahead and click that. Go over there and pick up their expansive documentary, Aliens Expanded. Like The Thing Expanded that you were so excited for, Aliens Expanded came out last year. It has interviews with James Cameron, Sigourney Weaver, Lance Henriksen, so many people involved with the production. You can learn about how much James Cameron hates tea time, all of that kind of stuff on that documentary. Definitely go check that out. But we're going to have some fun talking about our favorite experiences with Aliens. My first experience with it, honestly, I cannot remember a time that this movie didn't exist. I was born briefly after this movie came out. So Aliens, Empire Strikes Back, these movies, I was a huge fan of sequels as a child too. Back to the Future 2, Empire Strikes Back, Aliens, Secret of the Ooze, Terminator 2. I wore these tapes out, like just exhausted tape after tape on VHS, just throwing them in the automatic rewinder, throwing the next one in the tape, leaving them on while I was playing with Legos or my Ninja Turtle toys. Aliens was in constant rotation for me. I probably was like 8 years old the first time I remember really paying attention to it. And it was also one of those films that I saw before I saw the original. Same with Terminator 2 and a couple of those. But I think it's a perfectly fine movie to jump into this franchise with. You can start with Aliens. So without further ado, let's kind of jump into, some of our general vibes. What are our favorite moments of this film? I guess here's a first question. Gary, what character do you most resonates with you? What character do you most relate to in this film?
Hicks. Michael Biehn. Good old
Yeah.
Michael Biehn, man.
Yeah, that's good. Michael Biehn was also in Terminator, so James Cameron holdover. Is there something you specifically relate to about his character?
I mean, Biehn had a whole thing going on in the early 80s, right? Like the burnt out hero, the kind of cyberpunk dude that looked like he might be a reject. I mean, if you look at him now, it kind of looks like a school shooter. It's kind of creepy if you look back on it, but back then he was just the epitome of cool. So I mean, it was just like he never panicked really. He did his best, and and like you, I came off of Terminator in the theater, and then seeing him again as one of the soldiers in that was there. There was a lot of big personalities in that movie, but I kind of just like the fact that he made it to the end, right? It's like everybody else got pretty messed up, and then I mean, Alien 3, I guess, ruined that for everybody. But I like the character dynamic the Cameron set up in it, and it was kind of like a universe building before that term was coined, and then all that just kind of went out the window. But I mean, we're here to talk about aliens, and all that went out the window, so I'll just keep it at that. So Hicks.
Oh, I mean, I do have some questions about, if people have read the original Alien 3 script where Hicks is kind of the main character, because Sigourney Weaver did have a problem with a lot of the violence and the guns and stuff like that. But we'll come back around to that. Tony, what character do you relate to most in this?
I'm gonna have to go with Ripley because, knowing, like, working in fields where you know more than some people and then trying to, like, explain it and everybody, like, not listening to you till shit hits the fan, like that, it feels really relatable to a lot of life.
Hey, Mike, who do you find yourself connecting with as far as a character in this film?
I mean, I liked Hicks, I liked Ripley, but really the two characters, I'm going to go with two characters, but it's like the lines that they gave Bill Paxton. I mean, Hudson is just, game over, man, game over.
What do you mean they cut the fucking lights? They're fucking animals, man.
Yeah, it's just the way that Paxton played Hudson was just it was the right amount of really kind of sarcastic comedy relief in what could have been an otherwise really heavy film. And I really, even though she didn't go on to be an actress, I really liked the way Carrie Henn played Newt. And just, they mostly come out at night, mostly. It's just they got her to do some just great deliveries on a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, and I just recently watched this with Carla, who plays Kitchen Witch on the Horror Hour. You can check the show out on Tubi and YouTube and all those places. But it was her first time seeing it. She did not grow up with these movies, so it was exciting to vicariously see it through her eyes for the first time. She still hasn't seen Alien. We decided to start with Aliens because it's more of an action thing. And I actually really appreciated the way Gorman was portrayed this time. Like, he has the most of a character arc, like, besides Ripley. I think Ripley obviously has the biggest character arc in this, where Burke kind of stays the same the entire time and some other people get killed off early. But I think Gorman really goes from, like, trying to do what he's supposed to do, being in charge, screwing that up, understanding that he screwed that up, and then really trying to make amends with it at the end. So I really appreciated that. But I do quote Hudson more than anybody else in this film. That's for
no. I was rewatching
Absolutely.
again. I rewatched it this last Friday with my wife, who had never seen it before, and just the scene with Velasquez near whenever they couldn't get out. That just you're such an asshole, and he did. He was right there doing the right thing. But I mean, I
when
also
y'all are watching these with your vicarious eyes through other people, do y'all show them the original theatrical cut or the director's cut?
I showed whatever I could get on Amazon Prime easily.
Yeah, whatever's easily available.
I showed her the copy that I have on VHS, which I believe is the original theatrical. Yeah.
Copy that.
Yeah.
One of the things though that I specifically did not talk about, because it's hard to get me to shut up sometimes, but I specifically did not talk about anything about the movie so that we could talk about it better afterwards. And I just remember there's one scene. It's kind of like when we were talking about The Thing, the chest biting scene was just so surprising to everyone in the theater when it was first came out. And this time I remember, and I talked with my wife about it after we watched it, and it's like when they're in I can't remember if it's ops or med, but they're like the aliens. You're getting all these signals from the aliens, and it's like they're in the room, and it's like they look up, and it's just that scene where they go above the ceiling, and you just see so many of those aliens coming at you. That's just like that's lived rent free in my head for 40 years. It's just I
love that scene too.
And that affected Lauren about the same way as what I was.
Yeah, and that is kind of the reveal that it's aliens, right? Like we have this. I don't know how real this story is anymore, but it's like they've kind of printed the legend at this point, where it's James Cameron walks in the room and he just writes alien on the whiteboard and then writes a $sign behind it. And that's where they got the idea for aliens. And it was like, hey, we're gonna do this bigger and better than we previously had. Yeah, I mean, that is just such an impactful moment. Are there other impactful scenes that jump out to folks? Let's start with you, Tony.
I mean, the iconic ending with the power loader fighting the queen. So it's definitely a big one. And then the get away from her, you bitch.
Yeah, I mean, that is such an impactful scene, and the power loader thing. It's funny to think back on it, and in the trajectory of my mind where the action figures were happening around the same time for the canceled cartoon series, and it feels like that's such a setup for an action figure, right? But if you actually go back to some of James Cameron's short films, he was very into these mechanical human exoskeleton forklifts kind of thing. I don't this kind of has played out, and I think there's even a version of it that shows up in the Avatar series that
it's his aesthetic. It's like industrial 80s military mixed with Caterpillar. It's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And I mean, and for its time, I remember I always like sci-fi films because they kind of give you this snapshot of, oh shit, that's what we thought the future was at that time, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I was in '86 and I seen the blueprint in the command center that that shows the whole complex, or the GoPros on their shoulder pads, or the steady cam with the M60 on it, basically as a smart CAD, and it's that all that kind of stuff. You didn't really see that before or at least I didn't as a child. And it was oh, so this is what our future is like. It's and now you look at it and you're like, oh man, it's CCTV. For instance, I watched the director's cut a lot, and I even back in the day when it came out on DVD or something for the first time, the Sentry scene, right? It's just it was oh my god, it's so badass. But in 2025, you're like, wow, these are the worst Sentries ever with with the terrible interface design and all this. But it was cool. It was I remember geeking out as a kid over the APC and the drop ship in the power loader, and it's of course I had all those knockoffs, because they had a couple of they had the Kenner series, and then they had some stuff that was oh, we'll borrow the designs, but we won't call it Aliens, that was floating around out there too. I had all that stuff, man, because I think the technology of it was a big part for me as far as I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go off and start talking about it.
No, you're good, man. No, definitely. I love all that.
Yeah. The aesthetic of the Alien universe is really cool, and I love seeing the things that it's influenced throughout the years, and even upcoming things. There's that new sci-fi game from the developers of Last of Us, Naughty Dog, that has kind of cassette retro futurism, vibe already, and I'm like, I was sold as soon as I saw that. I was like, hell yeah, dude! Like, I love that the new Alien stuff is kind of mixing like now what we have for the future with that kind of vibe, and like
Yep.
meshing it all together so it feels more realistic. And a lot of it feels like it's like companies cutting corners, which we see all the time.
Yeah.
There was a whole 80s aesthetic in science fiction, kind of mirroring like the revisionist westerns of the 70s, but like in the 60s you have the quintessential science fiction film, 2001, and you have like E.T. and all these kind of nice shiny futures out there. And in contrast to that, you had movies like Blade Runner and Outland, the Sean Connery movie in 1981, and Alien, where there was all this workman. It's all like industrious. Like, this is what the future is going to look like for people that work there. And so I really liked that Cameron, and I could see where it's just right in his alley to do this, but he just really kept a lot of the way the set design and production design looked, and the way the military looked. It was all very functional. It was all very, this is the way Space Marines are going to work. And you can even see that now. It's just the idea that you have monitoring that's going back to a centralized location so that a higher up can sit and actually direct the fighting. It's like, that's not that far from what they're doing now. And but it's in 86, it was just like sci-fi, but it's just that whole workman view of the future. And this is the way people are going to grunt in the future. Love that.
Well, yeah, me too. And I mean, that really is like kind of a connective tissue between some of my favorite science fiction movies. You mentioned Blade Runner, Alien, both Ridley Scott films, but then there's also Dark Star, which was also written by Dan O'Bannon, who wrote the original Alien script. And then even like the first bit of Romulus really had like the people like living on the ground and had the aesthetic really down. Then it became a little bit like, hey, remember this better movie you like a little bit more after that. But I really dig like that first like 20-30 minutes of Romulus, just putting me back in that aesthetic and back in that vibe. But like the cowboys and miners that Dan O'Bannon kind of put on screen and made really gritty with Dark Star and the original Alien, absolutely really appreciate that aesthetic.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you on that with Romulus, especially in the sense that like when you watch Aliens, even with the deleted scenes in it, with the kids playing in the hallways and stuff, it's you only get to see like an empty colony, and Romulus like kind of gave us what it was like in the middle of work. You know what I mean? So I thought that was kind of neat, to see that, and it was worse than what I thought, right? Like, oh my God, it's just terrible conditions. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It really fleshed out what we couldn't see in Hadley's Hope in Aliens.
Right.
Yeah, that's one of the things I like about the newer stuff is like it's really added, like building on the world. Even at its like worst moments, it still adds something that's like new and interesting to build and like feed that like further into our imaginations of this like lived world. Like in Alien Earth, they have some of the new aliens that they showed, and then like you get to see how it is on Earth with the different companies and like
you get to see a Weyland-Yutani dropship.
Yeah. You also get to see How I Trained My Xeno, which is basically what the series should be called. But
oh yeah, How to Train My Xeno.
I think you actually coined that phrase, Gary. I believe that was you that came up with that one. So I want to give credit where it's due.
Well, I mean, like it's, what do you expect, right? It's like what, 25, 40 years later from like, and this is actually, I'm in a bunch of these like fan groups and forums and all this stuff. And there's like this whole like thing where like, how do I put this, man, without sounding like an asshole?
Just rip it.
Go ahead.
Well, there's just so many cats that are my age. I'm 48. I'm old. I'm a Gen Xer. You know what I mean? There's so many cats that are my age. They're like, you kicked my childhood in the dick. And it's like, I'm not mad at Disney for trying new ideas. I'm mad for all like the weird Disney placement stuff in the How to Train Your Xeno. Like, I know what you're doing. You're trying to set it up for the future, but like, man, give it a little bit of fight back at least, And it's, but at the same time, it's like, I want to embrace the concept that the protagonist, what's old girl's name?
Wendy.
Yeah. It's like I want to embrace the idea that Wendy is something different. Like, I mean, I really enjoyed the concept of a hybrid. You know what I mean? I was a little prepped for that. There's a book called Alien Cold Forge, and basically the main character is able to interface with her android caretaker because she has a degenerative disease, but she's a scientist. And when she goes to work around dangerous stuff, she can like Neuralink into that. So it's kind of cool to see those concepts fleshed out. And it's like I'm so enamored with the idea of seeing like, and I know we're supposed to be talking about aliens, but like here, this
But we're
ties
all
back
we
into
could
aliens.
yeah.
Okay, so remember when what's the bounty hunter's name? I'm sorry that I'm supposed to be a super fan. I'm forgetting everybody's name.
That's totally. Oh yeah, what?
The overly serious one, the brother, but he's a cyborg, right? He's not a android. Remember, and like he starts
Oh
downloading
yeah,
data, and
yeah. For
he
the
starts
Alien
sweating.
Earth bounty hunter guy, yeah.
Yeah. So like, I mean, remember when they
Oh, yeah.
showed him downloading data, and it was like hella sweaty for him, and he was like, oh, like where like an android could just pop it in, and it was like, wow, man, it's like seeing an iPhone 1 and an iPhone whatever our current one is. That's a trip, and it's like, oh, so there are limitations on organics, and like I love exploring all those kind of concepts in the world, and I love that like there's another company out besides Wayland Utani because it's like they're building on that. But I can't, some of it I can't abide by, but I can't let it. I can't be these cats that are like, it's not aliens, so it's not perfect, and it's like, you know,
Yeah.
I learned to love Alien 3 over the years. Like, I mean, for its own story and I learned to accept resurrection. So, I guess I'm just an easygoing fan.
Me
Yeah.
too, and I think you and I were kind of like the biggest, or we were the most on board in our local film groups for Romulus, and I think I have critiques of Alien 3. I think the assembly cut is the best version of it. I have a lot of critiques of Resurrection. I have critiques of Prometheus, but I have a very interesting relationship with Prometheus, and maybe you've all heard this story, but I've never said it on the pod before, but like I started watching Prometheus not knowing that it was an alien movie. I didn't even know it was a Ridley Scott movie. It just got put on, and I was like, okay, cool, whatever, science fiction, I'll pay attention to this. And then I started picking up on the vibe on things, and then I finally had to like grab the box and look at it, and I was like, oh shit, this is an alien movie. So I might have been the most excited person when Prometheus ended out of like all of the alien fandom, just because I had not been paying attention to like movies at the time, and it kind of got sprung on me. I really didn't like Covenant when I first saw it, but I've like ignored some of the worst parts and gone back to it and actually kind of enjoyed the action sequences. What I really appreciated about Romulus is they just doubled down on it and they were like, nope, all of it's connected. Everything is here. We've got this new creature that confirms resurrection, covenant, all of this stuff is all one universe. And I love the commitment to stay loyal to the canon the entire time, because not many horror franchises do that. There's a ton of rebooting going on and like picking and choosing, there's like 12 different paths you can take with the Halloween series, but with Child's Play, Saw, and Alien, the whole franchise is canon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely agree, and I feel like they took it a good way to like introduce like those elements from the prequels and like merge it in to where it didn't. I didn't think it felt too forced. Like it was weird, but like the series is kind of weird. Like fucking Ripley being revived as part alien and like yeah, it was already weird back in like the 80s and 90s, and for them to take those aspects and build onto it, I think it's good to own the weird of your series.
Yeah, and Romulus did it in a smart way. I mean, it's like the pulse rifle, right? Since talking about aliens and the connective threads, the pulse rifle was pretty badass. I'm not gonna lie. It was like it was an aimbot, but it told you it was an aimbot. And I mean, it seems fairly smart to have a gun that can do auto targeting for a bunch of scientists that aren't good at shooting at stuff. So I thought that was a neat little addition and like kind of a nod to aliens, and I
I
like,
did
and
like
there was parts of Covenant I like too. You know what I mean? But
I did
you
like
know,
Romulus though. I did take Laura to see Romulus, and it was not bad. I still I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch Alien 3 sometime because it still is a big block in my brain. And I liked Resurrection a lot better. I mean, it was such a after the sour taste of Alien 3, Resurrection was, for me at least, was just like, okay, we can do that. And of course Prometheus is Prometheus. But one of the things throughout the entire whole Alien thing, and I think about this because I like reading screenplays and I like reading early versions of screenplays. And so you read the original Dan O'Bannon Alien script, and there is no android in that script, and it's just showing how Ridley Scott was sitting here looking at it going, we need a subplot. And he's talking with Walter Hill going, hey, we need a subplot. Give me a subplot. And so they added the whole subplot with the alien, which, not the alien, the android, which they brought back the android from Alien in Alien Romulus, even though it was all computer generated, because I think that Donald Pleasance, I think, is dead.
No,
But
Ian Holm. Ian Holm.
Ian Holm,
Sorry,
sir,
Ian
Ian
also-
Holm.
I'm sorry. That's just my brain getting things mixed up that they shouldn't. But the whole idea of the android and how important that is, with in Aliens, the android, I was
Lance
just
Henriksen,
watching,
Bishop.
yeah, Lance Hendricks, and the whole knife scene and how it just freaks Ripley out, and just kind of the working with Ripley and the android throughout the show, and she just is like, I want nothing to do with you. But by the end, she's like, okay,
Right, but you see, Mike, you have to understand, she didn't like the cornbread either.
that's
Yeah,
true. That's true.
there is another android in Alien Romulus, played by David Johnson, who I think does a pretty fantastic job in this role. I know a lot of people kind of made fun of him for being a sad robot. He also gets the most unfortunate line in the entire franchise, in my opinion, where he repeats the line that Ripley says at the end of Aliens, "Get away from her, you bitch."
Nope, a
But
win's a win. First black android in the series. A win's a win.
yeah, yeah.
Wins a
And
win.
so, but I wanted to call out David Johnson was also absolutely amazing as, I would say, the star of The Long Walk that came out last year, which was one of the most
Oh
impactful
man.
movies I've seen.
Shit, he was the star of
That was
Romulus.
so
to me.
heavy.
Yeah, he was the star of Romulus too, but man, his performance in The Long Walk, we went and saw that together, and it was just like four dudes crying.
Yeah. We're like getting out of the movie, just all quiet, like, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
David Johns. I've been able to watch them in what is it called, Industry, and I'm like, wow, impressive breadth of work.
Yeah. And actually that kind of does we didn't really get your thoughts on Prometheus, Gary. How do you feel about that?
Oh man, so I'm a person of color, you know, and I liked Prometheus. I like aspects of it, like everything else. But I think what really turned me off from it was the all of a sudden the creation and that mankind was made by space white dudes, and they also made the alien, and that took away the mystery from the space jockey for me. Because I mean, if you look at the original Alien, the space jockey's huge, man. Not an 8 foot dude, but like it looks like it's like 15 to 20 feet, right? And it's just like, and it doesn't look as humanoid as it does in Prometheus. So to have all this stuff go back to like Ridley Scott's weird infatuation with creation myth stuff was kind of a bummer. And to have David actually be the progenitor of it was kind of a bummer for me. But it is what it is. But I have to say, and I don't mean to sound like the conflicty fan, but Dan O'Bannon wrote that script initially. Ridley Scott's a director, and as we saw proven when Fede Alvarez came along with Romulus, and even the poorly executed yet lofty concepts of Homeboy that did Fargo. Alien, the franchise benefits from new blood, and it's and I think that really Scott was getting a little old in the tooth, or just kind of shoehorning it so that the fans. It's like he didn't take the fans into account, and I mean, and you could tell that when he shot Covenant, right? When he said, "Oh yeah, you want a slasher movie, but I'm going to stuff this thing full of aliens," and it's like, in the end, you said all that shit to your fans, and all you did was put an alien in a slasher scene in the shower. But what Covenant did give us is watching a xenomorph run at full speed, which is a sight to behold. And neomorphs are nice too. I'm not gonna lie, they're brutal little monsters. But like Prometheus was cool because it didn't promise to be an alien movie. It was set in the alien universe, and I mean, I really, I thought Shaw was great. I thought, I look forward to that. But I have to remember that Ridley Scott does not believe in building franchises like that, I guess. It's like, oh no, that character will be killed off screen and some special lead up on a website you can look at. And it's like, great. Thanks, man. You know, like even Resurrection, for all its faults, we got Winona Ryder called third generation robots built by robots. You know what I mean? That's a cool concept, man. So I don't know, man. I just get really tired of I have David fatigue, you know? Like I wouldn't mind seeing how the story ends, but I mean like when he's quoting Ozymandias and standing out in the wind and doing all that shit, man, I'm like, come on, man, this could have been 10 more minutes of xenomorph action for me, you know? And you put Alien in that. So I don't know, man. That's how I feel about Ridley Scott. And I can't talk about Prometheus without the follow up of Covenant because it was just such a Prometheus. I left with a sense of wonder. I thought for its faults, you know, he did his thing, making a unique story, very raised by wolves, kind of, you know what I mean? And then Covenant was just a space slasher with, you know, mid star power, you know?
So I
Sorry.
guess I basically agree with you. I also think that the worst bit of dialogue in the entire franchise does actually belong to David when he's talking to himself about doing the fingering and the blowing with the flute. But
Right.
it's like, I mean, nobody in the, I mean, Ridley Scott just wouldn't be edited. That's really the problem, is that he just is too much of a control freak.
Right.
But I do think the David thing is a good segue. Have you read any of the Aliens versus Avengers series that is happening in the Marvel comic universe?
Yes. Yes. Are you talking about the one where Black Panther or the latest iteration of Black Panther comes back and it kills Tony Stark? They basically kill everything.
So yeah, it's all the older Avengers. They're
Yeah.
aged now. It's
Yeah.
on a future planet. Miles Morales, Spider-Man, he gets caught with a
The
face
Venom
hugger, but he gets,
symbiote. Yep.
yeah, and then the symbiote absorbs it. So instead of the spider logo on the front of his chest, he's got the face hugger. But have you seen the part where they get to the multi-dimension and it's actually the Avengers versus David?
No, no, I did not see that part.
Yeah, I think that's in issue 3, so sorry for the spoiler there, folks, but
Not that. Okay,
David
guys.
is the reason that the aliens have come to the Marvel universe, because David has cloned himself and figured out interdimensional travel. And yeah, that's why there are xenomorphs on Earth 662 or whatever it's called in the Marvel universe.
I had to take a break when I saw Mr. Sinister with a face hugger gun. I know.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it was awesome, but it was also like, what are we doing here, guys?
Yeah,
What are we doing
no.
here?
If you're talking about seeing the aliens in, like, say, comics specifically, I feel like I got enough Alien in the comics with the when Chris Claremont and Dave Cockrum were doing the Brood storyline in the early '80s.
An X-Men, yeah.
In X-Men, yeah, because it's basically an entire ripoff of Alien and, space insect invasion stuff, and of course, then the X-Men have to fight them, and it's
Well, Mike,
I,
do you remember the Dark Horse comics for the Aliens Colonial Marines back in the day?
well, I have read a lot of the Dark Horse Aliens and the Aliens versus Predator, which because they owned both franchise, or they had the rights to both franchises, they could actually,
Mm-hmm.
that was the first place you saw Aliens versus Predator, because
Mm-hmm.
some smart person at Dark Horse said, "Oh my God, we could print money," and they did. And then you have at least, I liked the first Aliens versus Predator. I'm not going to say I liked all of them, but
Well,
but
Ian, I don't know if you know about this, but so right after Aliens came out, Dark Horse put out a series, and there was a couple of it was Aliens, and I think it was Aliens Colonial Marines. But basically, Hicks and Newt, Hicks who grew up being Ripley disappeared, and Hicks and Newt grew up, and they went back to Earth, and then the aliens came to Earth, and it was all like in the series. And then to follow up with that, there was Aliens Earth War was what it was called back in the day. I think they rebranded it the Female War. But when Alien 3 came out, they changed the characters Hicks and Newt to Billy and Wilkes. And because the ending of Alien 3 was significantly different and didn't follow up on the Cameron storyline. But
Right.
as a kid, when you go from reading that comic all the way to like the early 90s when Alien 3 drops, it destroyed my world because I was like thinking, okay, yeah, Newt's going to be a teenager and Hicks is going to have this burnt face and be this old grizzled commando. And I think there was like a what's that Neil Blomkamp spec reboot kind of thing where he was talking about just not counting Alien 3 and all that kind of stuff. But
Yep.
There was nothing worse than sitting in the theater for Alien 3. I think I was like in ninth grade, maybe a freshman in high school. And I'm super stoked because I'm like, this movie was my childhood. And then there's nothing. There's nobody. There's just the guy from Game of Thrones and the guy who plays The Rock in the show The Rock in the 90s. You know what I mean? It was a lot to adjust to, man. But I mean, that kind of taught me that you just don't get what you want in the Aliens universe. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I mean, even the original trailer for Alien 3 does have like the sun rising over the earth, and it's like it does imply that it's going to be on Earth this time because they made the trailer before they like shot any of the stuff, and then they like
Right.
screwed Fincher over a bunch. And there is something to be said about the fact that like the first four Alien movies, like they brought in kind of newer directors. They only had like one or two things under their belt, and like kind of let them run with it, and you got some different things. I guess the third one, Fincher, the studio was a little bit more involved, so he didn't really get to do as much as he wanted. And I'm forgetting the French director's name who did Resurrection, but he got a little bit more freedom, and that's why we got something kind of weird and different with that. But yeah, I mean, I have said Romulus is my third favorite movie in the series, and the bar was pretty low. So that's been my opinion on it the whole time. I think Alien and Aliens are two of the most perfect movies ever made, and then Romulus has gotten closest to being as fun as them.
Yeah, definitely a lot of member berries, but it was a great kind of revival of the series.
So
Y'all
we
know
were
the
talking about.
Resurrection was made by the director that did Amelie and City of Lost Children, right?
Yeah, he was a good director, but he still didn't have like a ton of things under his belt, but he also got a little bit more freedom than. And Amelie is a fantastic movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that one thing that the smiles on the xenomorphs and the resurrection was something that, I mean, it's a guilty pleasure. I'm not gonna lie, because they just know that they're gonna get loose. You know what I mean? And I thought that was super fun, man. But yeah, it was a terrible movie.
Has anyone read the what is it, Black, White, and Green comic book series? It was an anthology series of the alien stuff.
Yeah, yeah, I read some of that. Pretty good.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's a good format for Marvel to use, the anthology format, so they can kind of spread out around the universe and not make you commit to some of the longer, earlier serialized stuff they were doing when they first dropped their series.
yeah. So I would love to see some of those storylines get picked up. Like Alien Earth has the opportunity to kind of draw from anywhere, and I feel like some of those are low hanging fruit. I haven't read any of the Dark Horse stuff. It's been on my radar for a long time. I played a lot of the like Colonial Marines games iterations, Alien versus Predator games. Was not a fan of the Alien versus Predator movies, but I do think
Mm.
if what Alien is currently doing collides with what Trachtenberg is doing with the Predator series, we could get a good movie out of it. But it is going to be kind of probably a PG-13 good time, everything in bright daylight versus which is, that's one of the complaints about Requiem, is that nobody can see what's happening in that movie. So maybe that is the direction to go.
Yeah.
One
Well,
last
you're
thing about
saying, Mike, you were saying you liked AVP, the original Dark Horse
the first one,
limited
yeah.
series. So, did you notice in Predator Badlands that Deck has a broken tusk, like broken tusk?
Hmm. Oh no, I just saw Predator Badlands, and I like the fact that they do have. I was explaining it to my wife. It's a found family film, and the main character has father issues, and but the whole idea is that the bad guys are still Weyland Yutani.
Yeah.
But
Always.
one of the things I wanted to mention before we got totally off of the all the different versions of Alien out there is the unproduced screenplay by William Gibson for Alien 3,
Oh
and
yeah.
just the idea that they could have actually had a good movie on their hands. It's for me at least, it falls right in there with, like, say, the Trevorrow script for the ninth Star Wars movie, and just all of the missed moments and the
I
disappointment. You talked a little bit about the disappointments that you have in
Yeah.
franchises that just go off the rails. But Ian,
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, didn't they turn the Gibson script into an audiobook, and they actually had a few people come back, like Lance Henriksen and stuff, to actually voice their characters?
Yeah, yeah, but there's another book before that called The First Draft of the Third Script. So like the one that held all the voice actors was the second draft of William Gibson's script. But William Gibson actually had a couple of drafts. I think the lady's name is Nancy Cadigan. Did the novelization of
Cat Cadigan.
Cadigan. She did the novelization of the first draft. And the first draft, I'm not gonna lie to you, it's even wilder. So it's to me it's better. You know, it's even more over the top. But I mean, like, yeah, that was a. I see when William Gibson wrote that, it was during Cold War tensions between USSR and America in a nuclear time. So like it kind of paralleled like an arms race scenario, which was pretty interesting. And like it's funny because I read it a long time ago in a different headspace, but then I read it afterwards, maybe like 10 years after that, and was like, wow, this is pretty relevant. So I mean, there's a group called the United Progressive Peoples, the UPP, in the Alien universe, and it was interesting to see what what would be basically the equivalent of the space communist factions lived, and basically the whole pretense is that the Sulaco drifted through UPP airspace or space, excuse me. And during that time, it was only in there for like 15 minutes, but they sent the spec ops team in there and it retrieved Bishop and some samples, and they got into Bishop's head and started doing their own work on a version of the alien. And of course, shenanigans ensue at both Anchor Point Station, which is where Hicks and Newt and Ripley all kind of end up right after they get pulled off the Sulaco. And then there's another UPP station that they kind of detail the downfall of that based on, it's aliens. So they researched it and it got out, So it was cool to watch those two different sides of a political spectrum, both of their base stations fail. And I thought that they did a really good job of tying that together in the first draft,
Is the UPP the same like socialist communist party that is in the Black, White, and Green series too?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. They're all over the expanded lore, which is pretty cool. And that actually, when Marvel did that and acknowledged that was made it kind of canon. You know what I mean? So that was kind of, or not canon, but like, oh, they brought it forward from that. So, but
Exactly.
I think the original iteration of it came out of William Gibson's script.
Yeah, that's what I got kind of excited about. I do think there is like an important aspect of, and we're four guys from our mid 30s to our early 60s here talking about these films, but there is like an important overarching story, at least in the first four movies, the theme of like motherhood. And especially, I actually think the Halloweenies podcast dove into this really well about how 1, 2, and 3 really talk about different issues around motherhood and feminism, and better than I believe we can here, which that William Gibson script kind of goes away from. But also it's interesting to like call out that there has never been a female director of an alien movie still, and we're like 9 movies in now. Just some interesting stuff I'm throwing out there about how there may be some blind spots we're missing about how this is important to women as well in horror.
One of the
Hey,
things
speaking
I
of
like
that,
about,
motherhood, did you see the deleted scene from Aliens where she saw that her mom had died and she got the picture?
Or where her daughter had died, and then she shows up in alien isolation. Yeah, but because of the cryo freeze, she had actually aged past her. Yes, I am aware of that.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing that what you were saying there about the motherhood thing, I was remembering Alien is like the movie of basically what happens to a bunch of guys who don't listen to the smart woman. But one of the things I really liked about Aliens is that at several points in Aliens, they say, this is what you need to do. And like Ripley's saying, oh, we need to take off and nuke this from orbit. That's the only way to be sure. And then Hicks backs her up. But it's just the whole idea of they try to do the right thing. They're not saying, oh, let's all split up and go look at, search this. It's like, no. We're doing the right thing. It goes wrong anyway because the aliens are just that. You just can't. You can't do the right rules when you're dealing with the aliens. And so I like that about Aliens a lot, that Cameron had the script set up so they weren't doing stupid shit and still getting.
How do y'all feel about the Queen? I know, I mean, it's pretty much known that Ridley Scott hated the idea of the queen hive structure, but James Cameron is kind of the person that introduced it. I mean, I'm a fan of it myself.
Oh, I love it. I love the whole hive mind thing. It makes sense for why there's a ton of them. I love that in every movie there's kind of an evolution of the evolution of like how their life cycle exists. Even in Romulus, they like invented that very yonic like thing that's like plastered to the wall.
Oh yeah, the one that hit Homeboy in the face.
Yeah, yeah. So I appreciate that it's an ever like we don't know everything about its life cycle. Like this isn't a butterfly and a moth where we know the like three stages where it goes from larval to pupal to like its full form. Every single time we're meeting these things, something else is different, and I love that. And the Queen alien was one of my favorite action figures, like that whole setup with the slime where you could have like all your different colonial marines go down through the slime, and like none of that slime exists anymore, and it's like $200 to buy at a vintage toy store, and it's probably all dust in the can. You can't open it up to look at it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Ridley Scott may not have liked what Cameron did with it, but he set himself up for it by having all of those egg pods in Alien.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the implied life cycle of the alien being an egg that then needs to go through a parasitic stage. Uh, he said all of that, or that was all set up in the first movie, and people were just expanding on it. I was rewatching Alien, and I was like seeing basically how how Ripley was freaking out when she saw the whole alien thing, and they were in the room, and it's like she spends an inordinate amount of time destroying the alien, the queen, the mother, and the eggs, and all of that for a place that's about to get vaporized anyway. And it's just like you could just see the way that Sigourney Weaver was playing it. You could see on her face she was totally just having an episode. It was not pretty.
Got to make sure it's gone.
Yeah, kill it twice. I can't remember if they had a toy of this. You started talking about action figures. I really loved that Cameron had used the Steadicam arm with a gun on it as for the heavier Marine action.
Yep.
And I don't know if
Yeah.
they made any action figures of that or not, but
Yeah, they had a
having-
Drake.
Yeah,
They-
okay, good.
They had a
had a Drake.
Vasquez.
Yep, they did. They
Now,
had both
did they
of
not
those.
have a Vasquez? Because I mean, Drake. I know that
Oh, they did.
girl toys don't test as well, but I mean, I think it would be
Oh no,
sad.
they went for the whole line. They were doing some things there. I mean, Apone had on a yellow shirt that said like "Bug Killer" on it or something,
Yeah.
And Drake was a little bit fancier looking. It was a fun time for toys. I'm actually looking at some of them right now.
Yeah, I have the I have Ripley, I have the Gorilla Alien, I have the Bull Alien, and I have the Power Loader, and I still have all their cards and stuff, but I've ripped them open and I've played with them. Ripley has like a very short kind of cropped hair. It looks kind of curly but more spiky. I'd say she looks like maybe issue 4 April O'Neil, if you're familiar
Yeah.
with that hair look. And then she's got a yellow ascot and a red t-shirt, and she's got a flamethrower that has action where you can push a lever to make the flame go in and out. Yeah. And then the power loader has missiles that shoot off of it, but also has grabbing action.
Did you guys like the power loader in Badlands?
Yeah. I was glad it was there. I was just like, whatever, give me all the fun connective tissue. It was just a fun movie. I wasn't taking that seriously at all. I was a
Yeah,
little
I was.
disappointed because in my mind, Badlands was going to be. I don't know if any of you watch Killer of Killers, the animated anthology series that came out on Disney
Yeah, I
Plus.
saw it.
Yeah. So after Prey, I was just like, oh man, let's just do that. Let's just drop the Predator in different times and different cultures and see how they defeat the Predator. And so Killer of Killers, they give us a Viking, they give us a ninja and samurai, and they give us a World War II fighter pilot. And so at the end of that movie, there's kind of a setup, and like you see the person from Prey there, and you're like, oh, so Badlands is going to be this like battle royale where you get to see all of these warriors together. And now that we're getting Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter this year, I'm okay that I didn't get another like tournament fighter last year. But when I went into Badlands, that's what I was expecting, and I got a very fun time, but it wasn't the tournament fighter I was expecting.
I think my favorite like media callback to Aliens is the very end of Conker's Bad Fur Day, where you literally are in the power loader fighting an alien, a xenomorph.
Nice.
Yeah, that is a really good one. That's much better than having to deal with the shit demon over and over again because his song starts to get a little grating for how cool we thought it was and edgy when we were younger. Yeah, that is a good question. What are some of our favorite callbacks? I would like Carnosaur 2 is such an Aliens ripoff. Like, what are some of your other favorite like callbacks and weird culture that maybe don't jump out to people as often?
The first one that comes to me, though, and it's more of an alien callback, is Ice Pirates, where they
It's a good
actually
one.
had, well, they had, was it John Hurd, kind of do a cameo and recreate the entire scene. It's like, not again.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
whole
pretty
chest
good.
burster scene. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the one that popped into my head first, but that's just me.
Is it
I mean,
Spaceballs with the
Spaceballs, man.
dancing? Yeah, the dancing alien, the little baby alien.
Yeah.
Hello, my honey. Hello, my darling. Yeah.
There was an Aqua Teen Hunger Force recently, Plantasm or whatever. They had a whole aliens ripoff in the beginning, you know. Thought that was pretty funny. And when there wasn't all the other cool games that came out for Colonial Marines, there was Halo, which borrowed heavily from, you know, Aliens aesthetic, you know.
Yeah, the Covenant has
Absolutely.
very alien looking.
No, I
Yeah.
wouldn't say that. I'd say it's Aliens done by Jim Henson, right? You know.
Yeah.
But all the Marine tech and the battle rifles and stuff kind of running that parallel of Colonial Marine Starship Trooper kind of look. You know what I mean? And
For
the
sure.
dropship, the Pelican is definitely a dropship ripoff.
Yeah. Does anyone have any favorite memorabilia from the franchise? Any favorite toys or plushies or anything like that? Favorite shirts?
I met Dallas and Lambert the other day, like maybe last year. We got to hang out for an hour, and I got them to autograph everything. I mean, everything.
They
So
were
I
up
have a
at
bunch
the
of
Pickford. You did
yeah,
a
yeah. We
screening of
did it as a
Alien. Yeah.
fundraiser event. Yeah, and we just kind of hung out at a local bar, and Lambert told us stories about the production. Which I mean, man, that was some pretty interesting stuff. I got the opportunity to interview them and stuff, and while I was there, I had them sign. I have a whole bunch of Aliens cards. Topps actually made trading cards for Alien, and I had them sign a couple of those and a couple of photos from like you know back in the day. They were very accommodating. So I mean. If you look at my room, I have got pretty much everything alien. It's ridiculous. Like I said, I think maybe my pulse rifle's my favorite though.
That's a good pick. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's nothing special, just the Nerf one, but like still feels cool, a little tactile. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I really wanted to get that when they put that out. I was like, oh my god, that's amazing. I need it, but I didn't pull the trigger in time.
Tony,
Oh, and
Mike,
I got some
either of
Power
you?
Loader
Ooh.
Reeboks and Colonial Marine Bug Stomper Reebok.
Nice.
Wow. Those are pretty styling. The power loader ones I was eyeing when they, and I'm not a sneakerhead at all, but those really caught my attention for sure.
Yeah, I'm not either. My wife got them for me, so I just wear them. Like I wore them to my wedding. You know what I mean? Like
Oh yeah.
kind of like big events. I'm like, oh, time to pull the Power Loader shoes out. You know?
That's so cool. Tony, what about you? What aliens merchandise you got lying around?
Surprisingly, I don't have a ton of alien merchandise lying around. I have some of the video games. I got Alien Isolation this last year and played through most of it. That was pretty
Ooh.
sweet. It gets a little old after a little while. Once you figure out the tricks, I'm like, okay, I'm bored. But it was a good game and like neat to get engrossed in it. But yeah, other than that, I don't have a ton of Alien merch.
Have you played any of the other Aliens games?
Yeah, I played like AVP back on the PC when I was a kid, and then I played a couple of the games on like the Super Nintendo. I played little bits here and there of most of the
Have you
games.
played
Now.
Aliens Fireteam?
No, I haven't. I am aware of it though. That's the one
It's
that's
pretty good. And then there's another one that dropped that was in VR that was probably the most terrifying VR game I played called Rogue Incursion, and that was pretty
Okay.
badass. Yeah. And then they had another one that just dropped last year that's like a RTS called Dark Descent.
Yeah,
And,
they're on my radar. I haven't pulled the trigger on those yet, but they are.
yeah, those are interesting. There's a trauma mechanic. Have you ever played the old XCOM?
Yeah.
So Dark Descent is like that. And it's kind of
Like
cool
Ice
because
Combat
when
in
you go back
Alien.
to the ship, if your guy has had contact with aliens or seen a friend die or something, you got to put him in trauma ward for a few rounds. You know what I mean? And so like as you go from different spaces to space, you got this whole like place that has the wall from Aliens where she's like sitting there in the deleted scene and it's like a serene background that she, uses the remote to turn off. It's like you got 6 Colonial Marines in there, just like fuck, it's pretty interesting. But anyways, I digress.
That's
For
a
sure.
like tactics turn based thing, like XCOM.
Yes, I said it's very XCOM centric.
I do want to. Alien 3 on the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo is better than Alien 3 the movie. If you haven't played it,
That bar's low though.
Yeah, it's pretty good though. It's like an alien platformer. I recommend it. Mike, what about you? What a alien merch do you have?
Well, I mean, I think I haven't the Art of Alien, which has a lot of Giger in it, and but I know that I have.
We
It's
didn't
in the
talk about
garage, right?
Giger and Mobius at all. Yeah.
And the whole connection to the Dune, the wacky Dune that never got made.
Jodorowsky, yeah.
Yeah, but I have like the 18, 19-inch tall Alien model, and I think it might be from Alien 1, but it's in the garage because it's packed away because it needs some work before it's in real presentation. But it did remind me of a friend of mine way back in the early 80s someone had made the alien head, and it was like really long and had like a plastic skull in the front, and it's just, it's the only thing that it didn't have. You had to add extra KY to make it look right. And he put that on, and he could barely see out of it. And we guided him around an actual haunted house, and the people in the haunted house started redoing the lights. They weren't putting the lights on to scare us with the people. They rejiggered the lights so that every time he walked into a room, he like freaked out every one of their workers.
That's great.
Because yeah, I know it's a classic memory of messing with people in a haunted house. All the people listening that work in haunted house are going, "That's not cool," or "That's super cool." Either way.
Oh yeah, Gary's giving us a tour of all his stuff right now. All my cool stuff's in my basement, so even if I turned my camera on, none of it would be up here. But I do have a xenomorph trick or treat bucket, so it's like the xenomorph head, but it has a hole in the top. I use it to hold my D&D dice, and then I've had this face hugger plushie that I have hung from my VHS rack for a very long time. It's sweet Baphomet art there. Oh, that's the Necronomicon. Yeah, so there's some Giger stuff that Gary's showing us. And then recently, for my most recent birthday, my friends Brent and Danica, who are friends of the show, gave me a plushie of a xenomorph that had a zipper for its mouth, and you zip open the zipper, and its second mouth pops open, and it also has a zipper on it. So it's a gimp xenomorph. Yeah. Are there any final thoughts about Aliens or the franchise or its shared universe? Are we ever going to get a movie where Jurassic Park, Terminator, and where we get Skynet and Jurassic Park and Weyland Yutani and the Tyrell Corporation from Blade Runner all in one movie that confirms they're all canon? Or is that only going to happen in a place where, oh, I forget his name, the guy who directed Event Horizon and Blade Runner 2049, he tried to place them all in one universe. So, any
Well,
final thoughts?
we'll definitely get that when Fortnite the movie is made.
Right. Exactly.
Hey,
Oh man. Yeah, no, I'm
it'll-
excited for the future of the series. Like, I know they make some weird steps sometimes, like you said with the How to Train Your Xenomorph, but I'm optimistic and excited to see where it goes. And worst case, once it hits a point that I don't like it anymore, I just stop caring and just like the parts I like.
And man, anything's better than a pizza delivery driver and his ex-con brother fighting the aliens. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh man.
I just like being able to go back to Alien and Aliens and skip one and then watch some more. And I really thought that Alien Romulus was a good thing, and I have not had a chance to watch Alien Earth yet.
Yep. I will just keep putting on Alien and Aliens, and I'll enjoy the other things if I ever get the itch for it. But if I like pulse rifle to my head, I'm putting an Alien. Like that's really what it comes down to. So thank you for joining us for another episode of the Hallow Ian Horror Pod. Head on over to the link that is in the description and order your copy of Aliens Expanded so that you can get 5 hours of details from the people who made the film, plus really cool interviews with people like, they always have folks like Eli Roth, Guillermo del Toro, like, some of your favorite filmmakers and least favorite filmmakers on there to talk about how it influenced them. And you can check us out on Tubi, YouTube. Make sure you rate and review the podcast. Gary, where can the people find you?
Bleedingham.com or check Bleedingham social media.
Yeah, submit those short films. I want to see you there this year. Tony,
Yes.
where can the people find you?
Well, they can find me here on the podcast pretty often, as well as McPatches 3D on Twitch and Blue Sky.
Mike, where can the people find you?
Well, they can always find me flooding your zone as Van Vidal in the Halloween Horror Hour, and
Hell yeah.
also you can see all of my other misadventures in filmmaking at rewiredgeek.com.
All right. Thank you all for joining us. Have a great night.
You guys have a great night. Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.